Hi, this is Tim Weber from South Texas College, and today's topic we're going to be looking at generativity in adulthood. So, generativity versus stagnation is one of Erickson's psychosocial stages, and his view was that this is an issue that will be come to the forefront in adulthood, and adults then would seek a way to be productive in a caring way that provides for others in some way, shape, or form. He saw that as usually occurring through one's work or through raising children and parenthood. So when we look at generativity, the opposite side of the equation is stagnation. So the adult that feels that they're not being productive in this way, then will have a sense of stagnation, that they're not progressing as they should in life, that they are stuck, that they're not getting anywhere. Generativity requires some maturity. And in fact, actually grappling with the previous stages of Erickson's psychosocial stages, that of identity and intimacy, definitely helps when one reaches also this time when generativity becomes important. It's important that one has a sense of identity so that one can find, uh, identify a way that they can feel generative. And needs for intimacy may force their way to the forefront if that adult does not feel that those are being met in some way. So again, dealing with the crises of previous stages actually is very helpful in order to also then confront generativity. So once again, usually then we will see adults confronting this through parenthood, caregiving for others, unemployment or work, or maybe through creative pursuits. In terms of caregiving, Erickson wrote, a mature adult needs to be needed. And if no one needs them, they may feel kind of useless. And I think there's some truth to that, just in my own experience. Um, So that then means that adults will seek to find a way that they can care for the physical and psychological needs of others in some way, shape, or form. And one example of this is the person that becomes the kinkeeper within a family. The kinkeeper is that person that takes responsibility for setting up celebrations of family events, family gatherings, the person that keeps the communication going between relatives, that communicates the new information to others that haven't heard within the family. That's that person that sort of just helps hold everything together and make sure that the family continues to meet and interact and stay in touch. And that person often is a middle-aged female member of the family, but not always. But does seem to be quite common, and that gives that person a sense of generativity, that they're actually doing something that is productive, in that it's keeping the family together, keeping family traditions alive, keeping people in touch with one another. So there's an example of how in caring for others' needs, the person feels generative. Caring for children is another way that a person gains a sense of generativity. And in so doing, one can not only just take care of their physical and psychological needs, but can also pass on important values as well. Now, raising children, though, is labor intensive. It's a lot of work. It can be very challenging. So, this also provides many of the challenges that adults feel as they move through adulthood. Now, we usually think that, well, children need their parents, but in fact, it goes the other way too. Adults need their children to gain that sense of generativity. The needs of children change at each stage, and that challenges parents to adapt as well. So all of this lends challenge yet satisfaction as they complete those tasks of caring for children. So there's many paths to parenthood, and as we learned earlier, children can develop well in any family that provides for their needs. What we'll find is 1 out of 3 North American adults becomes either an adoptive, step parent, or foster parent at some point. Each of these types of parenting situations also provides unique challenges as well. So, in fact, adoptive parents may find it a challenge to mm, bond with their child or have that child bond with them if that adoptive child also has interactions with their biological parent. That becomes even more of an issue amongst step parents or foster parents as well, who often those parents, their biological parents, is well known to them. So that becomes a challenge simply to establish that relationship with the child in those kinds of situations. However, in these kinds of situations, often that adoptive or step parent or foster parent also feels a special sense of satisfaction because they know that they've provided for a child's needs that otherwise might have gone unmet. So developing secure attachments to non-biological parents may be more challenging for adoptive, step, or foster children because these children may have loyalty to other caregivers, their previous caregivers, maybe even their biological parent that previously had cared for them. They also may challenge the non-biological parents, particularly as they get older, and they might say, well, if they are disciplining them, well, you're not really my parent. And they may act out conflicts, especially in adulthood, uh, focused on that adoptive or step parent. That said, most of these parents highly value their experience, and children who come from adoptive or step families, foster families, may not value that experience at the time, but often later on they recognized how they benefited from it. Might just add one other thing. Some people, not being maybe biological parents and maybe not having the opportunity to adopt, be a step parent or foster parent, may also satisfy needs for generativity through caring for children, through things like becoming a teacher and really taking those kids in their class under their wing, doing as much as they can to help them with their development. That gives a sense of generativity too, caring for children, even if one is not their parent per se. So adults also may gain a sense of generativity by caring for their aging parents. Sometimes they refer to adults in middle adulthood as the sandwich generation because they may be sort of squeezed between caring for the younger generation, their children, and the older generation, their parents. So at the same time, they may be helping care for an aged parent as well as a developing teenager. So for some adults, this produces a sense of pressure and maybe even exhausting, but most don't see it as a burden. They see it as something that, again, they're playing a very important role. And many enjoy helping both generations. Many choose to take on some or none of those roles. Often there is a choice available to them. And of course, when the person chooses to care for that aging parent, then that makes that even more satisfying than if they feel that they're forced into the situation. Now, having said that, mentioning aging parents and caring for them, it turns out that financial assistance is still more likely to flow from the older to the younger generation, from an aging parent to their child who's also an adult. So it seems like that's a lifelong pattern in many cases. Generativity also may be gained through employment and through one's work. Now, working provides many benefits for adults, provides for that sense of generativity, that they're producing something worthwhile, that they're contributing something worthwhile to the world. It gives the adult an opportunity to develop and use their skills. It may give them opportunities to be creative as well. It may give them a chance to help others, potentially as a mentor or friend to coworkers on the job. And it can help provide financial benefit for the education and health of their family, as well as a way to contribute to the overall community. So many possible benefits from being employed, working in adulthood. Now, when we look at these benefits, we can sort of divide them into extrinsic and intrinsic rewards. Extrinsic rewards are tangible rewards, things that come from outside the person. Extra is outside, right? Outside the person. So that usually comes in the form of some type of compensation, salary, benefits, pension, paychecks. And the extrinsic rewards of work tend to be more important to younger workers. On the other hand, you have the intrinsic rewards. These are the inner benefits, intangible benefits that come from within. So things like job satisfaction, self-esteem, pride in one's work, pride in being able to provide for one's family, and so on. Those tend to be more important to older workers. So you might say that older and younger workers, they tick a little bit differently when it comes to what's important and what motivates them at work. We also can see that changes in work conditions can have an effect on the person's development. Today, people change jobs more frequently than they did in the past. Today, many companies readily let workers go, hire other workers. It's very rare that a company is going to keep a worker on for very long periods of time. It's very rare that people in adulthood are going to work for one or only one or two employers their entire work life. Most people are going to work for many different employers overall. So that does provide a challenge to workers today, as they have to often look for a new position. That's particularly harder on older workers. Older workers may not have developed job skills that are now required that previously weren't. And many of them have actually become very specialized experts in a very limited area, which may not be needed by other companies. Older workers also often have set down roots in the community where they live, and it's harder for them to relocate, or they may be much more hesitant to relocate, where a younger worker might just move even 1,000 miles away on the potential that they might be able to obtain a job there. So that makes it more difficult for the older worker. Also, we see that today, our economy being more service oriented, that people are more and more frequently also doing shift work as well. This can present a challenge when it comes to family life, may disrupt family life. Parents may then need to take turns working and caring for children. They may, in fact, barely see each other as one goes off to work while the other comes home to take care of the kids, and so forth. We also see higher rates of divorce when parents of small children work night shifts or other odd shifts. Odd schedules also throw off bodily rhythms, take time away from family interactions. So one of the sort of reactions against this has been the potential, in some cases, to work remotely and to do so, and sometimes in such a way that one has very flexible hours of working. Adults today also encounter greater diversity in the workplace than they did in previous generations. There are more women in the workforce, more members of minority groups as well that they encounter. Higher employment rates have helped out those that were once shut out from employment, including people of minority groups. Today, we see more gender diversity in jobs as well, whereas decades ago, nurses were almost all women. Now, men are making up a sizable number of nurses. In terms of police officers, again, whereas we had very few female police officers years ago, that is becoming much more common. So you have much more diversity that the person has to interact effectively. So this is where diversity training can be very beneficial. It can help people be more aware of the values, attitudes, customs of people of other cultural groups, other minority groups, or the other genders, and enable them to then interact more fairly and effective with others. Now, one example of this, for example, is the the problem of microaggressions. So microaggressions are when one person, they may think that they're not being racist or discriminatory in something they say. They may even think that they're being quite charitable when they say this thing, but in fact, it will be perceived by the other person who is a person of one gender group or another, or one ethnic group or racial group. It may then be perceived by that person as being derogatory. Okay, and to give you an example, maybe one worker uh, at work, there's an older worker there, and that older worker has forgotten to do some task, and they might say, "Oh, I guess you were just having a senior moment." And they may think that they're being charitable at saying that, and giving them an out and an excuse for missing that task. But that older worker might perceive that as an insult and say, "What do you mean that I'm losing it because I'm old? You think all old people are forgetful?" And so on. You see, it may be perceived as an aggressive remark, even if the person didn't intend it so. So often diversity training can alert people to things that will be perceived as being aggressions, as being discriminatory or prejudicial. And many times when people become aware of that, then they're more than happy to adjust their behavior in order to be more kind to others and to be more fair and equitable. We don't have, I don't think the majority of people are trying to be prejudicial, although we do have some, but diversity training can help with that. Okay, one of the challenges then of adulthood is balancing multiple roles. In fact, multiple roles pretty much characterizes adulthood. That person may be at the same time parent, employee, friend, spouse, partner, caregiver, you name it, coach. you know, community leader, just so many roles that that adult may take on. Now, interestingly, adults that had very few roles actually reported lower psychological and physical well-being. It's almost as if, well, we need some of this involvement to be well. Those roles giving us a sense of satisfaction and productivity actually seem to benefit our health when they're within reason, when we can handle the stress of actually fulfilling those roles. So, the impact of multiple roles, though, is influenced by the person's personality traits. For example, if you're an extrovert, well, you already are seeking stimulation, so multiple roles fulfills that for you, and you thrive on taking on extra roles and so on as an extrovert. On the other hand, if you score high in neuroticism, yeah, you tend to be what? More emotionally volatile. And so all of the challenges and stresses of those roles may tip you over the edge emotionally and wear you out emotionally. So how your personality is sort of regulates how you respond to having these multiple roles. Your cognitions as well, how you think about things, how you see the world also. If you're an optimist, you tend to do better at balancing those multiple roles than if you're a pessimist, always assuming that something is going to go wrong. So, all in all, though, all adults have the challenge of balancing these roles. So, there you go. Generativity in adulthood is very important for the person's physical, emotional, mental health. And that's it for today. So have a great day. Talk to you later.